Welcome back to HPP, the podcast that covers college basketball and the NBA draft inside and out. I am Rich Harris, and thank you for joining us again. Today, I am joined by Ayad Booney and Duquan Llewellyn. Gentlemen, I don't quite know how we're going to survive without Maverick's energy. It's just so sad that he left us to pursue his dream of being a ballet dancer. So you think we're going to survive without him?
It's going to be tough, but I think we'll figure it out.
But we need to find someone for Doc to argue with, and I'm definitely working on that. And I think next week we might have someone argumentative enough to suit Doc. But anyway,
like a situation with Stephen A. Smith and Max. Stephen A. Smith had to get Max out of there. So this is what they don't want you to know.
That's right.
I fired him and he got out of here. He was talking too much Luka stuff, so we got him out of there. I need somebody who's more realistic.
By the way, you guys need nicknames. Like we had a nickname for Drew, the Bay Area Bomber. Doc, are you okay with the Harlem Hoopster or the Wilmington Wizard? You like either of those?
I'd rather take Harlem. Not even Wilmington.
All right. Harlem Hoopster it is. The Booney, yours is toughers.
Yeah.
I was thinking maybe San Mateo Shooter, or we could go with a previous used one, the Frisco Kid.
I think in this day and age, shooter with any city is probably not the best thing, So let's leave. Let's. How about mine to be a to be announced TBA?
How about San Mateo? How about San Mateo Slammer?
Yeah, maybe.
What? How's your vertical?
It's awful.
All right, so we're gonna move on and start with our NBA chat. So you're gonna have to do a little explaining here, Doc, because I didn't do a lot of background. I've been just all wrapped up in college basketball. So could you explain the first topic, which is I know I've seen the headlines, but I haven't actually gotten into the story. So what's going on with LeBron and the referees?
Saturday night was a rivalry week in the NBA. The Lakers took on the Boston Celtics, everyone know, and that's probably like the only real rivalry left in the NBA. NFL has a lot of rivalries, but the NBA, when it really comes to long-time rivalries, the Lakers and the Celtics, is 1-0. Like they are the long-time rivals. So what happened late in the game, back and forth, Lakers versus Celtics. You understand Celtics number 1 seed in the East. The Lakers is at the bottom. They fighting for a playoff spot. Right. The Lakers was kind of winning the whole game, and then to the last seconds, Boston kind of like tied the game. Jalen Brown tied the game on a jump shot. Then it was LeBron James' turn. LeBron James got the ball with 10 seconds left. He dribbled the clock out, drove to the basket. Jason Tatum hit him on his arm. Blatant. Referee seen it. No foul was called. Overtime. And then, of course, in overtime, LeBron James, he started pouting. And when LeBron James, he did, I don't know if you guys seen the video. Maybe we can insert the video here if you haven't seen it by now. But he started pouting, crying, rolling over the floor. Like, it was really dramatic. It was dramatic. Like, it wasn't like your normal, I got fouled, let me complain to the refs. It was LeBron James crying on the floor. I can't believe this. This is the end of my NBA career. It was the last. It's kind of, but what made it interesting, Patrick Beverley, never seen this before in an NBA game.
Yeah.
He got the camera from maybe like a social media manager that works for the LA Lakers. He brought it over to the referee, showed the replay, and told him, how is this not a goddamn foul?
Yeah.
And then he got a technical foul for that. Boston shot the free throw. And by the way, Boston wound up winning the game. I think they won by maybe like 8 or 6. I don't know. They just won the game, but
why did they win in regulation?
No, they won in what happened is LeBron had the ball and a chance to win it at the end and went to the hole with basically a second left, 2 seconds left, and he flagrantly got fouled. There was no call. It went to overtime. And they lost.
But So under the rules, if you get a technical after time expired,
Correct.
Free throw. Yeah, you shoot a free throw the next in overtime. So you get.
What if the game wasn't tied? What if the Celtics were losing by 1 or 2? Would they got the shots then?
Well, if the Celtics was losing by 1 or 2, then the game would just been over because they would never complain. They complain because
no. But I'm saying if the technical was called, but yet time. Oh, I see what you're saying.
So Rich, this was already when they were in the huddle. After the game, they were in the huddle and so forth. I mean, Doc, I don't know what you thought, but when I watched that live, I thought LeBron walked, and the replay said that as well. I thought he took 3 steps. He flagrantly did get fouled. I felt the refs had it predetermined in their mind that we're not going to let a foul decide the game, and they didn't anticipate the foul being so hard. They didn't call anything, but I really thought he walked before that even took place. So I don't know if you saw that.
LeBron travels a lot, but I probably got to watch it again to see if he traveled again in that particular moment. The foul was a bad call. You're supposed to call that foul, but you still have another overtime. And my problem with this was we've seen this way too much from LeBron James. Perfect moment was the NBA Finals, Game 1, when LeBron James scored 50 points, and then the final seconds was coming, and J.R. Smith did not take the shot when he got the rebound, and J.R. Smith ran the other way, and LeBron James was on the bench pouted. That was the exact same moment, and in that overtime period, LeBron James didn't even try. Same thing what happened Saturday night. LeBron James didn't try in that overtime. He just gave up. He walked off before the game was even over. He went to the bench, then walked off, and then he didn't even play the next game, which was yesterday versus the Brooklyn Nets. He decided not to play versus that game as a holdout. So we've seen this too much of the best player in the NBA or the GOAT. The GOAT cries a lot. The GOAT cries.
I love LeBron. He's on my Mount Rushmore of players, and I think he's one of the best. But things like that just drive me nuts. He's been doing that his whole career.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine doing that in college?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't. I can't imagine.
What an example to set. What an example. My favorite LeBron image, that every time I see his name or hear his name now, the first image that pops into my head was at a Bronny game about 2 years ago, and he was there, and he was on the floor for pregame warmups. Don't know why, but he dunked the ball during Bronny's pregame warmups. And I can't imagine as a father, and I am a father, trying to outshine or take the limelight away from my son. And that just, to me, just told me everything I needed to know about LeBron. That LeBron, at that point, it was more important for him to show off than it was to let his son shine. And not sunshine, his son shine. So, yeah, I'm not a big fan of LeBron as a person. But did he actually suggest that referees be fined for bad calls?
That's what Twitter is saying. Now we saw what happened on Sunday with the football game. So Twitter went.
Wait, you mean with the Eagles' first score?
Not the Eagles, the Bengals game.
The Chiefs game.
What happened with the Chiefs game? The thing where they blew the whistle.
It was a couple of things. Remember, it was third down, and one of the referees came forward from the back, and they gave an extra down.
Right.
And it was another.
Right. Well, technically, that play didn't occur. I mean,
technically, it didn't.
The ref is on camera going like this, and just nobody picked it up. So
but Bengals, everybody's in uproar about that.
That's called being a sore loser.
Yeah. So I don't want to get too off topic with the football, but that was just all that what happened during the weekend, and then that's what the conversation came about, how refs need to be fined, they need to do post game interviews, they need to be holding how the players are. That's how the refs need to be put. So now,
and this is all over a regular season game.
Yes.
Wow. Wow.
It's LeBron James. He holds his power. He's
Right.
LeBron James is still the NBA right now, I guess. If you think about it, when LeBron James retired, that ends a whole generation of basketball fans, basically. And now, like the new kids coming with stuff. LeBron James is more for the 1990 kids. Now the 2000 kids is going to have their plays like Steph. We're going to hear different arguments where Steph might be the GOAT in 5 years from now, hearing from a 25-year-old, So LeBron James is in their generation.
It's pretty absurd to say that refs should be fined for bad calls. What are you going to do next? Fine players for missed shots or missed games? LeBron sat out a game, you're saying, voluntarily to protest. Did he get paid for that game? God, I hope not.
He says he sat out for soreness, but let's see. He's playing tonight versus the Knicks. So it's just,
Since you brought up the NFL, can you imagine an NFL player sitting out due to soreness?
Yeah.
Chandler Parsons had something to say about this. Remember Chandler Parsons?
Oh, I remember Chandler Parsons. Of course I do. Yeah.
He says, I can watch my French bulldog get ran over by a mailman right now, and I would never react the way LeBron did when he didn't get fouled. Twitter went and wrote about that.
They didn't like that.
They didn't like.
Well, the animal lovers didn't like.
Right. Well, he didn't say he was going to blow his dog's brains out. He said if he saw it get run over. Okay, people just need to get a life. They really do. It's just amazing what they bitch and whine about.
True, and until when the uproar starts talking about Chandler Parsons not being near LeBron's level, and you know how that goes.
Yeah, well, who is? Like 20 players in the history of the game. No one is. So what's that got to do with anything? They're not allowed to have an opinion.
Yeah, the only thing I would say about Chandler Parsons is that he needs to pay back the Memphis Grizzlies some money for robbing them like that. Okay, that's what he needs to do. He needs to pay back some.
Yeah.
So he came up on a lot of money, 145 million, and playing every game. So he needs to come up some money, man. We need that money back, Chandler. But hopefully he recovers from that car accident he had in 2020. Was vicious, and hopefully he's great.
Yeah. And I'm sure everyone who told Chandler that he doesn't have a right to say something like that because he's not in the same league as LeBron. Of course, they must be in the same league as LeBron, right? So it must have been coming from Kareem and Dr. J and people like that. Because
speaking of Dr. J, you see I'm wearing the Sixers.
Yes.
I'm a diehard Sixer fan, even though I kind of switch sides. I ain't switch sides, but I'm a Benson supporter too. So I guess I'm a fake Sixer fan for this season. But Joel Embiid, All-Star starting five came out, and Joel Embiid did not make the starting five list.
Now, explain to people how this is picked, because I've noticed it's changed a couple times over years. I know the fans do have some input. I saw Kyrie made it. Who were the five people in the East?
Kyrie. It was Kyrie, Kevin Durant, Jason Tatum,
Giannis,
and I think was the last spot to Donovan Mitchell.
Yes,
Donovan Mitchell got the last spot. Yes,
it was Donovan Mitchell. And these people were selected solely based on fans vote.
Fans votes, and the reserves is picked by coaches.
And people like Kyrie Irving more than Joel Embiid.
Well, but you got to go a certain amount on the front court, right? They only had so many front court and guards.
Oh, okay.
So, the only thing I disagree with you on that is so it wasn't Embiid. So no matter who you left out, there's going to be an argument whether you left out Tatum, Durant, or Giannis.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So Embiid's the fourth one. So how it works is you have a vote for player rank, fan rank, and then media rank, and it's weighted. So, for example, Giannis got number one by the players, number one by the fans, and number two by the media. So he got the lowest score, which was 1.25.
But
in that situation.
But people, Kyrie and Donovan were in based on being guards, right? So they didn't
starters.
They didn't knock Embiid out. So it was the other three that were knocked out. Okay. Yeah.
So the other three that knocked Embiid out, Embiid probably still should have went in over one of them since last 2 years. He came in second in MVP voting. So this coming.
That's tough, though. I mean, whoever you take out on that one. I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you, but I mean, shoot, whoever.
So
I would take out. If I were to take anyone out, I'd take out Durant. But
yeah, that's what I was thinking. Durant, just because he's hurt, right? Right.
Take out Durant, but Embiid might. Just want to say out there, Embiid still might play because he might be a replacement if the Kevin Durant decides not to play. So he still might start.
Well, he's still going to be in the game. He's just not going to be a starter.
He's not going to be a starter. Yeah.
Right.
You know that's the big thing when be a starter. You don't want to come off the bench.
But so do you think? Are you arguing that Joel should have been part of the five?
I feel next year things like this make it where next year you change the rules. You probably don't. You just go 5 best players. It's all-star game. Positions don't really matter, and then the NBA turned into a positionless league. Embiid is not even really a traditional center anyway. He moves like a shooting guard. He kind of does the fadeaway like Dirk Nowitzki mixed with Kobe now. So I think you do positionless now. I think you just go by who deserves the most, and I think that was a awakening call. It always happens. Only need 1 year to be controversial, just like what happened with the NBA standings 1 year. Then they started doing the tournament where now 10 teams could compete in that tournament instead of just being the final 8. If you tie, now you got the 8th, 9th, and 10th seed competing to go to the playoffs. I think that's going to happen now next year. I think you just do positionless, and whoever gets in.
I like that idea.
I think that's what's the best bet to go off right now. And I'm biased. People say biased. I don't like Embiid, honestly, but I do think he should be a starter. You know?
Yeah. No, on the show before you came on, in the preseason, or not in the preseason, the first few weeks of the season, first month, I went on a rant about how I was like fed up with Embiid. I was fed up with him laying on the floor complaining about calls. I was fed up with hearing how he's going to be MVP and Defensive Player of the Year, and and it's just I don't. He wasn't, to me, he wasn't using his tools to its best advantage. He was trying to play more like a guard than he was a center. I didn't think he was passing the ball very well or as much as he should. And and I didn't think he was being very effective on defense. Now, this was early on. I must admit, I haven't seen him play probably for at least a month. And I know he's been killing it, including, was it last night? Last night he put in 47 or something like that?
Yeah.
That
was it the night before?
2 nights ago.
Yeah, right. So I know he's been killing it. Has he? And to me, he also looked out of shape. Is that? Are you still seeing the same things, or is he transformed?
My opinion on Embiid is he always going to be out of shape. He doesn't. That's just not him to come in the season in shape. He always going to be out of shape, and he's going to play like a shooting guard because that's the way he really wants to be. But he still is a dominant player. He still could go out there and score from anywhere on the court.
No doubt.
He doesn't play defense as he used to when he first came in the league.
Right.
He stopped playing defense. I don't know why, because he was a better defender originally at Kansas than he was offensive player.
Indeed. And he was also in much better shape. Yep. You should have seen, I don't know if you saw him much in Kansas, but man, I was blown away. I was like, this is the next Akeem Olajuwon. Mm-hmm. And he's turned out to be a lot different and not nearly as athletic as Akeem. Yep. Now, not many centers. I don't know if any center was ever as athletic as Akeem, but but I thought we had found one. And
Embiid was your last back to the basket guy at Kansas, as far as that. I think when he got drafted and turned in, the league really started switching as far as, everything was perimeter in versus.
Ben
Simmons had something to do with that. When you got a 6'11" guy who can play point guard.
Yeah, I'm talking about Ben Simmons.
One question about you brought up Kansas, and who you guys feel like was the better fit? Now at that time, right now we see that Embiid is better than Jahlil Okafor, but at that time, would you
Oh
say?
no, no, I thought Okafor was just just a post up guy and
Oh, you
just
didn't like
a
Okafor?
bully. No, I didn't. But I tell you what, that particular year that MB came out, I thought that Wiggins should be the #1 draft pick, and I could still make an argument that he should have been because he's the one who has a ring.
Yeah. Wiggins went #1 and B went 3. He fell because of injury. So
Right.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, Wiggins really taken off the last couple of years. Up until about last year, he was considered a bust.
Yeah, but look where he was and who he was with, and now that he got with people who actually know how to play the game or are willing to teach him, show him how the right way to do things. It's a lot of these guys fail not just because of themselves, but because they don't have the right guidance.
His defense has taken off. He's one of the better two-way players in the NBA.
Oh, most definitely.
I think he's Warriors' second best player.
Yeah, most definitely. Doc, I got one more question for you before you go. What do you think of Miles Turner's extension? I guess any trade talks are gone. I mean, they extended him for this year, and they extended him 2 more years out. What are your thoughts on that?
I wanted the Warriors to trade for him. I like Miles Turner, but the injuries anyway.
Yeah, they realized that I think the surgence of their point guard, Tyrese Halliburton, had a lot to do with that. I think now they look at at first they didn't look at Tyrese as a star. Now they look at Tyrese as a real potential star. So now they're going to keep Tyrese, and then with the addition of Miles Turner, and then you got the young guy Mathurin. You kind of got a nucleus because you need a center. You need a big man. And Miles Turner fit the mold of you can make the argument he's the top 10 big man right now in this league.
Oh, sure.
And you can probably make the argument when you really look down the list, you might sneak him in the top 5. So it's like you can't get rid of. You still need a center in this game. It bails you out a lot if you have a center now. So I think when you got Miles Turner on your team, you want to just keep him because he's still a top 5 big man. If you go from Miles Turner to what? It's not that many guys you could legit say is better than Miles Turner other than when you're talking about Cat and Embiid and Anthony Davis. After those 3, it gets weary after that. And you need a big man. You need somebody big to guard. Oh yeah, and Jokic too. And you need a guy who could kind of match the physicality of the other big men in the league. And Miles Turner is a perfect example. I don't think you get rid of Miles Turner, especially now since Tyrese Halliburton got better crazy. And Mathurin. You already know Mathurin's second year is going to be insane. So now they probably just need one more piece, and that can happen. Right. You don't break that up. And I think Pace has seen that this year. I think Miles Turner should thank Tyrese Halliburton for turning into this star that nobody saw. Nobody can say they saw him turn into this type of player, scoring 20 and averaging 10 assists. And playing great defense. So you need to tip your hat to Miles Turner. He's getting everybody paid because he's giving Indiana Pacers organization hope of winning the NBA or competing to win an NBA title. Yeah. And not off.
Yeah, I agree. I thought it was good. I thought it was a good move.
Just to stay healthy. That's his whole thing.
Yeah. And actually, there were a couple of years where I thought he should have gotten much more consideration for Defensive Player of the Year. But
he had 3 straight years where he was the block leader, and one of them he didn't qualify for games played. But anyway,
right. All right, Doc. It was great having you on again. Maybe next week. I think the trade deadline is 2 weeks from tomorrow, I believe.
It's the 9th, I believe, right?
I thought it was the 15th.
I could have sworn it was the 9th, but 2 weeks.
Well, if it's the 9th, then we better talk NBA trade. We'll probably be talking NBA trades for 2 weeks in a row, huh? One, maybe looking at some possible moves, and then talking about the moves that were made.
Yep,
you think James Wiseman's going to get moved, Doc?
James Wiseman?
What's going on with him, man?
Yeah, I think it's his mental is shot now. I think when you go that high of a pick and everybody your whole life told you was good, and I think once you go to Golden State, you got humbled. He never got done.
I don't get it, but
anyway. I think playing behind, being a young center playing behind Draymond is kind of mentally, because Draymond's not really a leader who could talk to you. Sometimes
What
I
about
felt-
Looney though? I mean, Looney's kind of like the perfect guy to follow. I mean, he does
Yeah,
everything
you
the right
think.
way.
I don't think he plays like Looney though.
No, he
think-
You think
doesn't.
so?
He doesn't, but he should. That's my point. Start
Yeah.
playing like Kevin Looney and then worry about the other stuff later.
And by the way, trade deadline is Thursday, February 9th.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's going to be in between shows. So maybe next week we'll talk about some possible trades, or maybe there'll even be a few next week.
Definitely. Yeah.
All right. All right, Doc.
The first person to get traded.
Huh?
Jay Crowder is going to be the first person to get traded.
Yeah, well, that would make sense. That would make sense. It's been great having you on, and next week there's a good chance we're going to have somebody for you to argue with. I'm predicting that. That's my prediction. That we're going to find an arguer. Is that a word?
Argumentative person. Yes.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. All right, Doc.
Good to see you, Doc.
Thanks for being on.
All right. See you.
So we're going to move on to our college notebook, and I'm going to start off by asking you the most general possible question, Booney. What were your primary thoughts from last week, especially the SEC Big 12 Challenge? But wouldn't have necessarily. I mean, that's where kind of my mind's going. But
You know, it was obviously. I think the big shocker was. Who was it? Oklahoma dominating Bama the way they did.
Yeah.
I didn't see that coming.
No.
You know, that was definitely a shocker. And the return of Mr. Isiaih Mosley, and it was his third game back actually, and how good Missouri looked was quite impressive. Kansas coming back with a nice win in Lexington. I actually thought of you during that game because I think when we were doing our picks, we picked Kentucky for the thought that, hey, who's going to stop Tshiebwe?
Right.
And they didn't even get the damn ball.
Right.
I mean, it was up and down the floor, transition. The only way it was really to an advantage to Kansas, and that was frustrating to watch.
Yeah.
Topin looked great that game, but there was a lot to it. Kansas State dominated Florida with that Keontae Johnson return against his old team. Are they for real? It gets you thinking. So, there was quite a bit going on last week. And I think that's where were my main takeaways and main thoughts of it.
Yeah. The first thing that comes to my mind is the same as the first thing you said was Alabama. But if Alabama, this is going to sound kind of funny, but I really believe this. If Alabama would have lost by like 6 or 3 or something, I'd be more concerned than them losing by 24. Them losing by 24 tells me that they just were not into it, because there's no way Oklahoma is 24 points better than Alabama. It just means Alabama did not show up. Now, you're dealing with a team that's starting 3 freshmen. We don't talk about it often with Alabama. I think it's because those freshmen play so well that we forget they're freshmen, but they are freshmen. And I think, you're starting to see Alabama hit a little bit of a wall. And now the question is, are they going to be able to push through? Because we saw Alabama kind of be sluggish against Mississippi State the game before. They pulled that one out. Then they go into Oklahoma and they get blown out. And and Sherfield, Oklahoma's guard, I mean, he had been in a huge slump, and he almost goes off for 40 against them.
They shot 9 of 13 from 3 as well as a team too. So they just run into a buzzsaw. I think that game. I think they'll be okay. But yeah, there was a number of games that surprised me that on the challenge, but it was fun. It was definitely fun to watch. Texas, Tennessee, I don't think was the football game we thought. It was a little bit more high scoring.
No, Texas, I think, came close to scoring 70 themselves.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about that Kentucky game. So one thing that really struck me about that Kentucky game was how well Chris Livingston played for Kentucky in the first half, and how we didn't see him in the second half. We saw C.J. Frederick out there constantly, and C.J. Frederick looked awful.
And Reeves too. Reeves was out there as well.
Yeah, but Reeves didn't look as bad as Frederick. Frederick, I mean, he had opportunities to get the ball in Isiaih. He passed them over. And when he did try to feed the ball into the post, he screwed it up. He'd throw the ball, too wide, too low, too high. I just thought CJ Frederick just looked bad. And I'm thinking, where is the 5-star freshman who looked so good in the first half?
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah. Did you get it? I didn't get it.
I was extremely, extremely frustrated. Isiaih had 8 shots all game, and they actually interviewed Self at halftime. As far as the success they've had against Isiaih, it's like, hey, hang on a second. Every time they've gotten the ball to him down low, he's either scored or he's getting out there with 3-4 assists in the first half as well. He's playing a lot better than you think. And yeah, I mean, Frederick and Reeves were 0 of 8 from 3 and 4 of 17 from the field, and they each played 30 minutes. And I agree with you on that. Livingston, he only played 17 minutes in the game. I believe 12 of them were in the first half. I don't know. I don't know what Calipari's doing. It was an extremely frustrating game for me to watch.
Does Calipari know what he's doing? Yeah. That's what I often ask myself.
Yeah.
One more thing, and the funny thing was, we said last week when we were talking about Kansas, they got to have more than just Jalen Wilson and Grady Dick if they want to, go to that Final Four type of level, and they did. They're two bigs, KJ Adams and they both played great, and they just destroyed Kentucky with the pick and roll. And getting lobs and dunks and even on an inbounds play, KJ Adams caught one over Isiaih and just dunked it on his head. So from a Kansas standpoint, I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. You can't just have 2 guys doing it. You need more than 2. And that happened for Kansas. But at the same time, that was the one weakness. I thought, here's where Kansas is overmatched in this game between Isiaih.
Yeah.
And you know what? Here's the thing about Isiaih. He really is a tweener. He really is. He's not a rim protector. And he's a great rebounder. And I think he has more potential, as a face-up guy and to shoot more from the perimeter. But I'm really concerned about his fit with the NBA. I mean, we can save that for another day. But that game just, if you can't stop KJ Adams and the other freshman who was actually considered their 3rd-string center, who was barely playing, if you can't stop those 2 guys, and nothing against KJ Adams, but he's 6'7" sophomore. That can't happen to somebody like a reigning player of the year.
Isiaih almost reminds me exactly of Sanogo in some ways.
I think he's more athletic than Sanogo. I think he has a better motor than Sanogo usually. But I hear you.
Yeah. And I think he could still be dominant in the half court setting. And KJ Adams and where he was getting his points was a lot of it was in transition. And
also short rolls, though. Short rolls for KJ.
Well. Yeah, that's true too. And that was for me a very frustrating game to watch because I really like Kentucky in that. I thought they started turning it around. Livingston and Wallace are starting to play a lot better. I thought they were going to have a real good game plan going in, and they played right in Kansas's hands.
Right. All right, so let's follow up on your Missouri thoughts, because I totally agree. I guess my question is, are you buying into Missouri at this point? Because early in the season, I was like, they didn't play anybody, they don't look that athletic. But you know what? Now that I watched Kobe Brown a little more, I watched Jamoy Hodge a little more, and now you add Isiaih Mosley to the mix, I am buying. I think Missouri is a good basketball team.
I tell you what I was really surprised at. Mosley didn't really play a great game in sense, right, against Iowa State. But what he did is he is somebody where the defense has to be aware of.
Shot gravity.
Great size, right? Mm-hmm. Now all of a sudden, instead, before when Kobe was their number one, and the defense could absolutely focus on them and clamp down. And you had Hodge as their number two, which for the most part is a great shooter. But now, before he just get contested, now it's, hey, Kobe has one-on-one matchups. Hodge is getting wide open looks. Golston coming off the bench looks that much better.
Right.
I mean, Mosley had such a presence, and I think that's what I was really surprised at was the presence he had. So yes, and like I said, he didn't have a great game.
No. It was really Hodge and Brown that really, played super well.
Yep.
Another guy I like, on that roster is I think he's junior college transfer, Sean East. I think he may have been junior college player of the year last year. He's a thin
left-hander.
Point guard, and man, he is fast. And he fits right into their system so perfectly. I don't think he's a pro. I mean, he'd have to shoot better first. Start right there. But man, the guy is fast, and he really does impact the game when he comes in. I'm really liking this team.
I was really excited. I mean, granted, you take it with a little bit of a grain of salt. They almost shot 50% from three, but I think they're going to have to do that as well in order to win. But God, Mosley was good.
Yeah. All right. So moving on to some other unheralded teams, or at least unranked teams, but unranked teams that are hot. And I'm going to give you a short list. I think there's a half dozen on here. Pittsburgh, all of these are teams that are hot and unranked. Pittsburgh won 4 of the last 5, third place in the ACC. Creighton won 7 of the last 9, fourth in the Big East. Temple has won 4 straight, second in the AAC. Illinois won 6 of 7, third in the Big Ten. Northwestern's won 3 straight, second in the Big Ten. St. Louis won 7 straight, first in the A10. And Texas A&M has won 9 of 10 and second in the ACC. So which teams are you really think, like we do feel like Missouri, which of these do you think are real, really they're going to hold on, they're for real, and they'll be dancing in March?
When I look at a team like Creighton and I make that same comparison as far as Mosley and what's he done, how's he made everyone around him better, you could make the same argument for Kalkbrenner, for Creighton as well, right? I mean, since he has come back, it's taken them a little bit of time to really get to the speed they're at right now. But that size, that individual as far as a rim protector is making everyone around him better. All of a sudden, we're seeing that preseason hype come to fruition now. Creighton looks extremely good. What they did to Xavier, I understand it was in Omaha, but still, they looked incredible. I mean, right now, and I haven't liked Creighton most of the year. Baylor's looking great. The whole team is really, really coming into their own. And my favorite out of that group of teams you mentioned would be Creighton. And I've been down on Creighton this year.
Right. And I agree 100% with you. My favorite in the group is Creighton. Illinois would be a close second.
Yes.
Everybody else, I think, is kind of on the edge. Now, St. Louis has the advantage. This is a down year in the A10. We thought Dayton would dominate the A10 this year. They're not. Now, of course, they had a lot of injuries, and I think they're also feeling the pressure of being ranked in the preseason. Everybody telling them, that they're one of the best teams in the country. And they're still, their better players, their 2 best players are sophomores. And one of them's been hurt for most of the season. I don't know if they're going to make it because the A10 might only be a 1-bid league this year. But I guess Dayton's best bet, actually, because of their terrible start, is that St. Louis keeps on running the table, and then Dayton, I think they should root for St. Louis, and then maybe it could be a 2-bid league.
Now can get an at large.
I'm thinking maybe St. Louis gets the at large and Dayton gets the tournament one, the winning the tournament.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I think it's a one-team conference. With
And
regards to
typically,
Michigan.
it's 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree. VCU maybe. I mean, they got a lot of hype in the preseason with regard to their players. You got Ace Baldwin, you got Deron Holmes, you have Perkins from St. Louis.
Right.
So they definitely, had their hype, but they've been a little bit of a disappointment.
Yep. All right, so now we're going to look at the other side of the coin and talk about struggling teams. Some of these are ranked, but these are just teams that we thought were going to be in the running, or probably even marked them down into March Madness. But now there's some question of whether any of these teams are going to survive. The list includes Arkansas. The list includes Arkansas, that's lost 5 of their last 7, and they're 9th in the SEC. UConn's lost 6 of their last 8, 6th in the Big East. Iowa State's now dropped 4 of their last 6, but they're still 3rd in the Big 12. Michigan State's dropped 4 of their last 6. They are 6th in the Big 10. Wisconsin's dropped 6 of their last 7, and they're 10th in the Big 10. Ohio State's dropped 7 of their last 8, and they're 11th in the Big 10. And lastly, we have Michigan, who's dropped 5 of their last 7, and they are 9th in the Big 10. So my question to you is, we pretty much, I think most people had these teams in the tournament at the start of the season, and probably for a good while longer. And now I'm asking you, who's in the most trouble? Who looks like they're just not going to make it?
Is Nick Smith coming back, Rich?
Well, if you listen to Fran Facilla, he says no, but Fran always seems to think he has the answer to everything, no matter what the topic is. You could ask Fran, the secret to nuclear physics, and he would probably have a good answer for you. So
Right.
I don't know if he's just trying to be the know-it-all that he always tries to be, or if he really knows. But my guess is it's not looking good at this point.
Yeah, I agree with you. The team that's been a little bit of a disappointment for me is Wisconsin.
Yeah.
They have the same shape of the team they've always had, and the same type of play, where it's pounding into the wall. They have Chucky Hepburn still running the point. You have the other big fella out there too, and I'm waiting for them to turn it around, and it is constant L after L. Michigan, I think they're going to be okay when Howard comes back.
He came back on Sunday.
Yeah, okay. I missed
Penn
that.
State. Penn State, yeah.
And Ohio State's been a little bit of a disappointment too since that big start.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is a lot to do with, hey, they just play in real good conferences and every night's really tough, or they're just maybe tailing off. I can see that with like a team like Iowa State, who I like. I mean, they blew the big lead last night, right? 23 points in the second half.
Right.
But before that, their losses at Texas Tech, at Missouri, at Oklahoma State. That's a bad one. At Kansas. So, it's tough in that Big 12.
I think what we're forgetting with Ohio State there is they have a lot of people that are trying to mesh. You have Ice Likely coming in as a transfer. You have 4 freshmen that are seeing significant playing time. Your best player is a freshman, and your best returning player had a shoulder injury, and that being Zed Key. And, Zed, I don't know if he's 100%. I mean, he hasn't been playing bad, but he also hasn't been playing great. So, and he has been wearing some kind of like supporting sleeve on his injured arm that he injured in that Purdue game. So, I have to agree with you. I'm most concerned about Wisconsin, but I also think Ohio State's in pretty deep trouble.
If I had to pick 2 teams, it'd be those 2. Yeah, I'm with you.
And if anyone could be encouraged by a loss, I think Arkansas can. Arkansas went to Baylor, and we know Baylor is a top 20 team. There's no question about that. And they hung with Baylor on the road the whole game.
They were winning most of the game. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, is Arkansas a championship contender without Nick Smith? No, I don't even think they're winning the SEC without Nick Smith, but they're a tournament team that could definitely get to the Sweet 16 without Nick Smith.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Okay. So now another guy who returned back to action, and that was also on Sunday, is Justin Moore, the point guard for Nova, who's returning from an Achilles injury that he suffered last March. And I felt, I watched that game closely, and I felt Villanova maybe played their best game of the season. Now, Justin Moore did not have a great game, but he was out there a lot, and I think it just was the stability of having him out there that gave that team encouragement. However, they played Providence within a window of 4 points for 36 minutes. 36 minutes, and it fell apart in the last 4 minutes. But we're talking about a team that's net ranking now is around 90. They are 4-6 in the Big East. Their overall record is, I think they're 10-11?
10-11, yeah.
But, if you look at things like the Sagarin rankings, Sagarin has them around 59. So that's kind of borderline in the tournament. So what do you think about Villanova now that Justin's Moore back? Is this going to be enough?
Villanova is another team that's really been disappointing to me. I felt without Moore and what they had with regard to Daniels, Dixon, Whitmore, Armstrong was enough to be a tournament team. And we saw that probably from the start of the season to the midseason, then lately. I mean, Providence is a great team, but Villanova needs to handle that at home. At St. John's, they squeak out a W. They squeak out a W against Georgetown, losing at Butler, losing at DePaul. Xavier at home. Xavier, of course, is tough, but they've been really, really a surprise to me. I expected a lot more considering the personnel they have. They're a good team. They're not deep, but their core five is a good team. Right. And for them to be where they're at is quite surprising. So,
but Whitmore doesn't play, for the first 7 to 10 games. And then Justin Moore just coming back after 20, he comes back for like the 21st game. It's just, I think we expected more out of Andrews and, or Armstrong, excuse me.
And Daniels, I thought was going to have a better year too so far.
Caleb Daniels can be frustrating for Villanova fans, and he was, to me, was the key to why they lost to Providence. As I said, that game was like tied with 4 minutes to go, and Caleb Daniels went right back into the mode that he played like in the first 5 to 10 games of the season, where he tries to do it all, and he's just not that player. And if anyone was to try to do it all, it should have been Whitmore.
Yep.
The other frustrating thing about that team is Whitmore has a body like the kid from Providence, the real good player.
Hopkins.
They have very similar bodies, but Whitmore is more athletic.
And it's explosive. He's like a train.
Right. Let this guy go to work in the paint. Get him the ball at the nail. Get him the ball at the elbow and let him go to work and see who can stop him. I'm telling you, nobody's going to stop him. But what do? They leave him on the perimeter, and they have guys like Justin Moore in his first game back going into the paint. Daniels going into the paint, and they kick it into, Dixon. No, this ball should be, all the plays should be running through Whitmore. I'm sorry. He's your best player. He's the only 5-star in the Big East. Can you believe that? He's the only 5-star in the Big East. Is
that right? I did not know that.
And, get him the ball. And, they're turning him into a spot-up shooter. And what a waste. What a waste. First of all, he's not a great shooter yet. I don't know what he's shooting from 3, but I'm guessing it's probably around 34%. But he could be so much more.
36.5, yeah.
Okay, but he could be so much more.
I agree with you.
All right. So another injury issue is Mike Miles went down on Saturday.
Yeah, what a big deal.
Yeah, TCU went into that game without Eddie Lampkin, who they knew was going to be out with a high ankle sprain. And then Mike Miles goes down in the first half with a hyperextended knee. There is no time. They haven't given us any timetable for his return. Let's say he's out a while. Let's say he misses, I don't know, we'll just throw a number out there. Let's say he misses half of February. Can TCU survive this?
No. I mean, they're going to play. They got West Virginia tonight. I see them going from the rest of the conference play 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 games, 2-7.
Yeah. Yeah, he is so he's so critical to that team.
He's the whole thing. He's everything.
Yeah. And Lampkin's probably going to be out another week or more.
Yeah.
High ankle sprains can sideline you, up 4 to 6 weeks typically for a basketball player.
I think they're going to keep him out until the tournament, until the Big 12.
Yeah, well, will they make the tournament if Mike Miles and Lampkin miss a lot of time? I mean, I know their resume is really good.
I think they're going to have to take that into factor.
Yeah.
And if let's say if they get one win in the Big 12 tourney, I think that's enough to get them in.
You know what? This is an excellent question for next week's guest. We should make a note of it. Next week's guest is Mike DeCourcy, Fox Sports bracketologist. And
is that right?
Yeah, we will ask Mike. We will ask him what he thinks of TCU, assuming these guys are still out. All right, so we'll move on to our stock report, and some of these guys we've already touched on because some of these guys are red hot.
Yeah.
And the first one is the guy you brought up toward the top, and that's Ryan Kalkbrenner, the 7-1 center for Creighton. I was thinking, when I was watching him tear apart Xavier this weekend, I was thinking, the argument that Doc and Maverick had about Luka not having the appropriate teammate. And right now, Kalkbrenner, 99th percentile for points per position as a role man. All right. And we're not even talking about his defense. He's the reigning defensive player of the year in the Big East. But I was thinking, here's the weird thing. This guy, last time I looked, is on nobody's draft board. I think when we release the draft board tonight, he's been on our top 100 all year, but now I think he's going to be encroaching on, early second round, top or near the end of the first round. He is just that impactful, and I don't see why. And he can shoot too. He hasn't shot a lot this year, but he can make a shot. And we're talking about somebody whose career 68% from the foul line. I don't know why people don't love Ryan Kalkbrenner.
He is surprising. He surprised me. I did not see this coming on. And every game he constantly grows on you. Rich, he's shooting 75% from the floor. He's averaging 15 a game. Almost 2.5 blocks a game. His stats are ridiculous. He's averaging 32 minutes of playing time. You're right. How impactful he is on the game is off the charts right now. He is the sole reason why Creighton's turning it around.
And he's also the sole reason why they went in a slump when he wasn't healthy.
100% right. I agree with you on Kalkbrenner. He keeps on getting it done. And I see him right now. I'm agree with you. Early, mid-second round.
Yeah. By the way, I'll tell you how impactful he is. Third in the nation in plus minus, 12.5. Third in the country. All right. So we're going to talk about another big man. I know you're loving this, Booney. You love your big man. And we're going to talk about Trayce Jackson-Davis. And you know what? He really needs to be included in this player of the year discussion because he's just He's been playing tremendously. And he's another guy. He's on everybody's draft board, but they mostly have him as a late second rounder. And again, I feel the same way about him as I do about Kalkbrenner. Now, I see his role being a little less defined, maybe, but he's actually blocking more shots per game than Kalkbrenner. He's blocking 3.2 per game. What are your thoughts on Trayce Jackson-Davis?
You got to remember, he's also doing it without any support. Them losing Xavier Johnson was a real big deal. He has a motor on him like there's no tomorrow. 19 a game. He's a great pick and pop guy. He is just getting it. I mean, I was watching one game. I forget. I think it was against Michigan State. He almost had a triple-double by halftime. The guy is just putting numbers that are just off the charts. He's shooting close to 60% from the floor. He is the focus of attention every time he touches the ball. He has one other player basically around him. I agree with you 100%. He is in the talks as far as player of the year, and you can make an argument that he is more valuable to his team than Edey is to Purdue. You can make that argument.
Yeah, you could. You could because at least Edey's had stability around him where Trayce Jackson-Davis has not, because he lost his point guard, and then a freshman comes in to play point guard, and then he loses his supporting front court player Race Thompson, and and Indiana really hasn't had a set lineup. Mike Woodson's been playing with that lineup all year, though I think he's finally found the secret, and I think Indiana's a team to deal with now.
His numbers right now, Rich: 20, 11. 4 and 3, 20 points, 11 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 blocks a game.
And that assist number is new. He never hit that's one of the big strides that he made in the offseason. He's really become a really good passer. But listen to these numbers, as long as we're kicking out numbers. Last 4 games, 35 against Illinois, 31 against Michigan State, 25 against Minnesota, and then 18 against Ohio State. And at the same time, 8 rebounds, 10 rebounds, 16 rebounds, and oh wait, I'm reading the wrong numbers. That was his defensive rebounds. Let's start again. Here, 9, 15, 21, and 10. 4 games.
Yeah.
So yeah, and a lot of people is like, well, what's he going to do in the pros? He can't shoot a jumper. Well, you know what? First of all, he's not a half bad, he's a decent foul shooter. And yes, I know he doesn't do it, but I think part of the reason why he doesn't do it, he's 67, by the way, for his career, 70% this year from the foul line. But, he's unstoppable on the inside. There is no reason for him to shoot the ball. And can he do it? Well, the foul shooting says he can. I've seen him shoot, a face-up jumper now and again, and his form doesn't look bad.
Looks great. Rotation's great on the ball. Comes up soft.
And here's another thing. Defensively, with a lot of bigs like Sonogo and Shige, we wonder, can they defend it in the NBA? I'm not concerned about Trayce Jackson-Davis defending in the NBA. He is athletic. That kid can move. And if you watch him, he's very switchable. And another thing, a lot of guys get their shot blocks from the weak side. He gets them on the ball. He gets a lot of his blocks on the ball. And if you see a guy go past, a lot of times he lets them go past on purpose so he can time up the block and just whack it off the backboard.
Yeah.
I just think this kid is very underrated, and I'm sure NBA people are very happy that everyone, people who like us, in our business of rating players that aren't in the NBA, I'm sure they're very happy that people say he's not draftable or whatever, because, they're waiting a chance to pounce on him.
Sure. I agree with you. Yeah, I like him a lot.
All right, so now we're going to go to another guy in the Big Ten who's just lighting it up, and again, if this team was probably a top 25 team, we might be talking about this guy as a Player of the Year candidate, and that's Jalen Pickett, the point guard for Penn State, the transfer from Siena, who I've had my eye on since his freshman season. But Jalen, I'm going to give you some stats because, people aren't necessarily familiar with him as they would be other people. But, I mean, this guy can do it all. 3-level score, and he defines 3-level score. 6'4" guard, by the way, so he's got good size to him. He's got good muscle to him. 51% from the field, 34 from deep, 78 from the line. But here's where the numbers get really fun. 8 rebounds a game for a point guard, 7 assists per game, 1.1 steals and 0.4 blocks, and only 2.2 turnovers for somebody who has the ball constantly. What are your thoughts on Jalen Pickett?
Jalen Pickett is probably one of my top 5 favorite players in NC2A as far as just watching. I feel Pickett has a win-first attitude. That's all he wants to do to begin with. He's all about his team. His 3-point numbers are very, very misleading. I've seen them play a ton. Those threes he is taking is often late in the shot clock. His first thing on his mind is getting to the hole, getting the best possible shot for his team. He's distributing, and talk about having no players around him. It's brutal. I love Pickett. 6'4", he's a load. He's strong. He's one of your old school guards that can really also post a guard up and play with his back to the basket. Big fan of Pickett. He's going to have to show a little bit more with shooting, though. Those numbers still 34% is 34%.
Right.
But I think he can do it. I think it's an underrated ability of his, but high on Pickett. One of my favorite players in NC2A, and he seems like a character guy as well.
Yes. By the way, assist percentage and assists per game, he's top 5 in the nation in both categories.
Wow. Yeah.
The one concern I have, I'm not too concerned about his shot. I'm really not. I watch Penn State a lot. I'm a Pennsylvania boy and, born and bred. So Penn State, I check out a lot. And I'm not too worried about his shot. It's not the prettiest, but I don't see anything really fundamentally off with it. The one thing I am concerned about is he's not the fastest guy. He's not the quickest guy. And I think that's going to be an issue at the next level that's going to prevent him from being a star. But I do see him playing at the next level. And when I'm not talking about Europe, I'm talking about NBA. I think
I'm with you 100%. 100%. I agree.
The next guy we're going to talk about is somebody that you actually brought up a couple weeks ago, and we actually mentioned, I don't know, maybe a month ago or so, just kind of in passing that he was doing well. But I thought we'd go into a little more detail today, and that's Hunter Tyson of Clemson. Hunter, I believe, is a super senior. And just for those who are not familiar with Clemson, because they're not getting a lot of press these days, not getting a lot of love nationally, but yeah, he is a super senior, shooting 49% from the field, 42% from deep on 5.5 attempts per game, 83% from the foul line. Here's a lovely one, 9.8 rebounds per game. And he's even better than PJ Hall, the big, strong center on his own team.
6'8", he's only 6'8" too.
Yeah, he's 6'8", and the rest of his numbers are, pretty much nondescript. But I really like his shot. I like the fact that he rebounds. I like that he plays with a lot of effort. He's a dual threat on offense. He's not just a shooter. He can post up. He can drive the ball. He's not really an isolation guy, but if you play him too tight, or if you fall asleep on it, he'll drive it to the basket. And he's got more coordination and speed than it looks. So what are your thoughts on Hunter Tyson?
Rich, you absolutely crushed it on these players this week. When you think of guys like Kalkbrenner, Jackson Davis, Pickett, Tyson, I don't think any of them are really high on anybody's board as far as getting drafted. But what you can say about all 4 of those players is they are straight up winners. And that's what I love about him.
And gamers.
And absolute gamers. And Tyson's one of my favorite players as well. He's on the list. You know, he's undersized, not the most athletic, and is averaging, 16 and almost 10 a game.
Right.
He shoots it well. He plays in an opportunity. He can score with his back to the basket. He does what he needs to do to give his team the best opportunity to win. Love Hunter Tyson. Again, as far as draft and so forth, I hope he goes mid-second round, maybe towards the end of the second round. I don't know. I do hope he gets his shot. I think he can play. And I just think what kind of player he is, what kind of attitude he is, what kind of winner he is, I think he might find his way on an NBA roster. Yeah.
Pretty shot, quick release. 88th percentile on, for points per possession on jumpers, 87th off the dribble, which you wouldn't imagine someone like him. But he's not going to do any kind of crazy, Dane Lillard, like he's more of a guy who's going to take a dribble or, make a slide step move or maybe a step back. Nothing super fancy, but with his height and quick release and nice quiet stroke, he's golden from 3-point range. So that's, I think the fact that he's a hustle player and he can shoot gives him a great chance. The one thing I'm worried about, and this is where it gets, here's a funny note on synergy. Everybody knows, and I don't know why, because people pay thousands and thousands of dollars every year to get synergy. Synergy's defensive numbers, I don't know how they arrive at them, but they often make absolutely no sense. And Synergy has Hunter Tyson ranked as apparently the best defender in college basketball. They have him at the 100th percentile for overall defense.
Right. I did not know that.
Hunter Tyson is not the best defender in college basketball. He's not even close. Right. Okay. He gets beat off the dribble fairly regularly. And the other, unlike some people who can get beat off the dribble, let's say like Kalkbrenner, he doesn't have the length or the speed or the vertical to swat away those shots. He doesn't block hardly at all many shots. What's he got this year? He's at oh my goodness, he's 0.1 per game. 0.1.
Yeah.
He's not a shot blocker for a guy who really can rebound. So yes, that's the concern with Hunter Tyson. Can he play defense? Is there any way he can improve that? He certainly tries, but it's just not there.
Yep, I agree.
All right. So now we're going to talk about a guy who's out your way somewhat, West Coast for sure.
Right.
And that's Keon Brooks, the forward from Kentucky, former transfer, now playing at Washington.
Right.
And, he's really finally getting a shot to actually play some minutes. And he's been playing a lot of minutes actually per game, 35 minutes per game this year for the Huskies. He's putting in 14.6 points per game, 43% from the field, 28% from deep, 79% from the foul line. He's always been a good foul shooter, by the way. Always shot in the high 70s. 7.1 rebounds per game, and 0.62 steals, which is kind of low. But on the positive note, he's averaging 1.5 blocks per game. So, my opinion is Keon Brooks is one of these guys that, beside the fact that he's not a good passer and not a good shooter, he does everything else pretty darn well.
Yeah. I think Keon Brooks is one of those guys that you really kind of, for right now, as far as an NBA prospect, you can't really look too closely at the numbers. 28% from three, 43% from the field. He may be the most athletic player in college basketball. He's in the discussion. He's explosive. I've seen him play several times. He does things on the floor that, just have your head turning. But he can't 28% from three, and he shoots a lot of it. I mean, he's averaging 15 shots a game. But like you said, he shoots almost 80% from the foul line. I think when you see somebody with real good foul shooting, the shot's going to come around.
Right.
And what the NBA does give you is it gives you space. I like Keon Brooks to sneak into the first round and someone take a shot on him in late first round.
Wow. He's pretty far off on our board.
Yeah,
right
no,
now.
I know. I understand that. I'm on a stretch there. So
I agree that I
judges.
agree that he's very athletic. And on another positive note, he's very good from short to mid range. Short range this year, 82nd percentile. Mid range, 52nd percentile. So there, he can make jumpers. It's just when he gets out to that 3-point line, they haven't been falling.
Yeah.
I think he's a solid defender. And it's kind of hard. I only saw Washington I think once so far this season. So, and it's hard to judge defense, when they play as much zone as they do. But I always thought of Kentucky, he was a solid defender. So yeah, to me, he's definitely been playing, he's had his ups and downs this season, but he's definitely been on a roll lately. If I look up the numbers, last 6 games, 19 points against Stanford, 26 against Cal, 25 against Colorado, 17 against Utah, 22 against Arizona State, and 25 against Arizona, who's actually been playing better defense.
Yeah.
And most of those games, I'll just list off his rebounds: 11, 10, 4, 9, 7, and 6. So he's getting it done. And so that's why he's made our list, kind of going from obscurity. And maybe we shouldn't have had him there. It's just, when he transferred out of Kentucky, you figured, well, if he was anything, he'd stay at Kentucky, or Calipari would beg him to stay, but apparently not. And
yeah, right.
I don't know.
He played decent minutes for Kentucky too. It wasn't
last year he did. Last year he did. But that was the first time. So yeah, I'm not sure why he left Kentucky. I guess he just didn't want to look over his shoulder all the time. And I could see that. I could see that. We do know that Calipari does some weird things with his lineup. So I could see not wanting to look over his shoulder all the time.
Right. No, I'm with you.
And the funny thing is, the next guy we're going to talk about is who he would be looking over his shoulder at. And that's Jacob Toppin, who's basically replaced Brooks, in terms of minutes. And at that forward position for Kentucky, Jacob Toppin, too, has been playing good ball. Not as prolific as most of the other guys, we've talked about, but he definitely... He's been very up and down this season, but the last 4 games, he had 11 and 11 against Georgia, 17 and 4 against A&M, 12 and 10 against Vandy, and 14 and 4 against Kansas.
On top of that, 19 of 30 from the floor in his last 3 games. He's getting a lot better. He did a lot of good things against Kansas as well, catching the ball on the wing, backing down his man from the wing. He's really showing his versatility. What worries me about Toppin, he's a senior already. When I was watching that Kansas game and with the way he's coming along, you would think he's a freshman. That's my concern. He's getting better. Is it too little, too late? I think he's going to get his opportunity with his athleticism, height, length to make an NBA roster. I just don't see enough consistency as far as his perimeter jumper and scoring around the rim in order to get there. As of late, he's looked great, but we'll see. I like him, but he was a freshman. Yeah, and unfortunately, who knows? You never know with Toppin, but good player.
I've heard more than once people say, he's an NBA player. I've heard that more than once. And I could see it with his athleticism. That definitely pops for you, especially his vertical. And last year he shot 40% from 3, but it was on such small volume that we weren't sure. This year he's
22%?
still 22% this year. Foul line, career wise, he's 70% from the free throw line. So again, an encouraging number.
Yeah.
But I think the thing that bothers me the most about Toppin, and this is probably a product of being at Kentucky. I hate to keep on ragging on it, but
with you.
And maybe that's just the way he is. But to me, I see somebody who doesn't have great instincts for the game and great awareness. And I've also seen at times some poor body language from him. I don't know, how much of a problem that is, but it's like on defense, he doesn't rotate all the time we expect him to rotate. Sometimes he helps when he shouldn't help. And sometimes he just takes shots. So you're like, what the heck are you doing? Or makes passes that are kind of like, there's no way you were going to complete that pass. So he's kind of a head scratcher in that sense, when you see the athleticism and then you see the final product on the floor.
And 45% from the field for a guy with his size, his athleticism, playing around the rim, mostly in the paint. That's a little bit of a question too. And like you were saying, that body language, if you are a twin or if you are on the bubble there, that's going to be a big deal.
Yeah, and I think that's probably, from having a brother who's in the NBA, he probably thinks, and you know what? Having a brother in the NBA is probably going to, no matter how poorly he did this year, he's still probably going to get a tryout. He's gonna get some looks, and that's just the advantage of knowing people. So, all right. So then the next guy is another forward, small forward, power forward, depending on how you want to look at him, and that's Tristan da Silva of Colorado, and he's a junior, and he is the younger brother of Oscar da Silva. For those of you who remember. Now, Tristan is not as big, not as strong, not as physical as Oscar, who played more the 4-5, where Tristan's more of a 3-4. Oscar, by the way, is playing in Germany, and the last time I looked, is doing well. But I think Tristan is more athletic, a better shooter, and I also think he's a better on-ball defender. And he's quietly, of course, playing in Colorado, he's quietly been on a roll. There's twice this season, he's had 3 consecutive games of 20 or more points. And he's currently in one of those streaks. He scored 27 against Washington State, then 23 against Oregon, and then 22 against Oregon State. And in that Oregon State game, he also added 15 rebounds. So that's So what are your thoughts on Tristan?
Rich, long, versatile, 6'9", can score from every portion of the court, can defend, long strides, can put the ball on the floor. I am a big fan of Tristan da Silva. And you're right, he's playing at Colorado, and he is under the radar right now. He takes good shots. He does what he needs in order for his team to win. 52% from the floor. He's 41% from 3. He is constantly getting better, and he is the focal point for what Colorado does, which means the attention from the defense is on him. He's averaging, 5 rebounds a game. He does a little bit of everything. I like da Silva. I'm hoping somebody drafts him somewhere in the second round. I think he's a steal. Big fan of da Silva.
Yeah. I am too. I love the way, for a 6'9" guy, the way he moves laterally.
Yes.
It is not easy to get by him. And also, this is a guy where I could see him being a point forward. Right now, it's not there. He's only averaging 1.4 assists per game, but he can handle the ball. He's not a point guard. You're not going to get him confused with a point guard, but he really can handle the ball.
Sure
Very smooth player.
Yep.
In the way he moves and the way he does everything. So now I got to ask you, we just talked about 3 similar guys, at least in terms of position. If you had to rank them, and I'm defending, I really know definitely how I'd rank him. It's not close for me. How would you rank? Who would you rank 1, 2, and 3 between Brooks, Toppin, and da Silva?
As far as who's the better player right now, or who I would draft?
Okay, yeah, we should note we should note, I think every one of these players except for Brooks doesn't have to come out. Toppin has one more year of eligibility.
Toppin's done, I believe. This is his fourth.
Right, but he gets his COVID year if he wants.
Yes. I'm sorry.
And
yes,
I believe Brooks, does he get a COVID year?
I think Brooks is going to come out regardless.
Yeah, he was. I actually talked to Keon last year at the Combine, so he did test the NBA waters last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you might be right, but he has one more year of eligibility, and De Silva has 2. So again, out of these 3 forwards, Brooks, Toppin, De Silva, how would you rank them?
If I'm going to draft these guys, I'm going to go. I'll give you 2 of them. If I'm going to draft, I go Brooks, De Silva, Toppin. As far as players I want on my team this year based on their play, De Silva, Brooks, Toppin.
Okay, I go De Silva, Brooks, Toppin, no matter how you want to look at it.
Okay,
whether
that's fair
it's
enough.
this year for the draft, I just to me, Brooks. I do see what you're saying. And you can say the same about Toppin. Their athleticism does pop at times, but De Silva to me is a complete player. No, not complete. I mean, like I said, he's got to improve as a passer for number one. But yeah, he could score inside now. Here's an interesting number, and he doesn't do it a lot, but he's 94th percentile in isolation offense. 94th for a 6'9" guy. Yeah, that's usually an area that's dominated by the 6-foot guards. Also, he can handle the pick and roll. So doesn't do it a lot, but we're talking about a junior who didn't get a lot of playing time his first 2 years. I just like his upside. I like how smooth his game is. I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
All right. So the last guy, I'm pretty sure you love him too, but Devontae Davis, or a lot of people call him Devo, is his nickname, Devo Davis, the combo guard for Arkansas, 6-foot guard. I believe he is a senior with one more year of eligibility. Bear with me here. He
has one more
actually
year.
He has 2 more years.
2 more years, sorry.
He's a junior. So I stand corrected. But in the Nick Smith being absent, Devo, who's always been known since his freshman year as being a lockdown defender.
Mm-hmm.
And he is. It's not just reputation. This guy will get in your uniform, and it's tough to shake him. But he's never been known for his offense. But listen to this. Over the last 6 games, 16 points against Alabama, 17 against Vandy, 18 against Missouri, 16 against Ole Miss, 16 against LSU, and 16 against Baylor. 16 must be his favorite number. There are some issues with Devo. He's not a lock to be a 3-and-D guy at the next level, but I want to hear your thoughts on Devo Davis.
He has great size. He's 6'4". He's athletic as can be, and like you said, he's a lockdown defender on already a really good defensive team. He's 29% from 3, which has me worried, but I don't know if that is a fair stat this year. And what I mean by that is the rest of that Arkansas team can't throw a ball into the ocean. So when opponents were guarding the perimeter, they're leaving everybody else open. Black, the other guys they have as well, just off the top of my head,
Ricky Council,
Jordan Walsh.
Oh, Jordan Walsh, Ricky Council.
Council, they're leaving those guys wide open. Mm-hmm. And the only guy that's getting any type of attention on the perimeter is Davis.
Well, I think Council does too.
Council's shooting is more on opportunity, right? He's 6'8", 6'7", 6'8", athletic.
Well, he likes to drive it.
But he needs to get that shooting down. But the way he defends, I see him getting picked up by somebody, and I see them working with his jumper. Jumper doesn't look bad.
Right.
It's just a matter of him getting some space. I see him being an NBA player.
I'm going to give you a number you're going to love, because when we're talking about 3-and-D, because I don't think Devo is ever going to be a starting point guard, and I don't think he's going to be a primary ball handler, and he's never going to be asked to create offense on his own. That's just not his strength. It's not now, and I don't think it ever will be. But you're going to love this stat. Unguarded catch and shoot jumpers, he's at the 82nd percentile.
Wow.
So if you let him open, he'll make you pay. And in the NBA, he's going to be open.
Nick Smith, I heard a lot of people on that team in the sense of how good he is. It's more of a compliment on Nick Smith, and it's just because he makes everyone around him better. And the rest of that Arkansas team needs somebody to make them better. They don't have that right now.
Right. But my point being is, if he has less attention, because right now he's trying to take a fair amount off the dribble. And like I said, that's not his strength. But in the NBA, he's just going to be standing there in the corner. He's going to knock down threes when he's open, and then he's going to go play tremendous defense on the other end.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. He plays, anybody that plays that good a defense is going to get their shot.
All right. So now we'll move on to stock falling, and we're going to lead off with a guy who I don't think you said it to me on the show, but I think you said it to me privately. You said, "Why do you have that guy so high?" And that
was a while ago too, I think.
Yeah, that's when we first met. And that's Kel'el Ware, the freshman center from Oregon. Now, Kel'el, numbers wise for a freshman, I mean, we're talking about very highly touted top 10 5-star type
He's
of
number
guy.
8. Yeah.
He's for your average freshman, he's putting up good numbers. But for a 5-star guy who we expected a lot of, not so great numbers. But I'll go over them right now. Basically, he's playing 19 minutes per game, 7 points per game, 45% from the floor, 31% from deep, 72 from the line, 4.1 rebounds per game, and 1.4 blocks. So let's hear it about Kel'el Ware, because I certainly have some thoughts. And there was also a development. Do you want me to talk about the development that happened?
Yeah, why don't you do that?
All right. Well, so this past weekend, he did not play against Utah. And it was, I think it was obvious that Dana Altman wanted to send a message. And I think it's been clear the people around the Oregon program are not happy. The players talk about it. Coach, he referenced it, didn't directly say this guy is dogging it, but in so many words he did. And I think he sent a message to him on Saturday and benched him for the complete game against Utah. So what are your thoughts on Ware?
Again, another top 10 guy in as far as 5-star recruits and where they're at right now. I don't know. We constantly are waiting for some of these top 10 guys to come around, and we wait and we wait and we wait. Guys like a Derek Lively, and I put Ware right in that category too. He has the height, he has the athleticism. You're expecting them to do something. He's 45% from the floor for a 7-footer that does all his work in the paint. He's 18 minutes a game. That also kind of tells you something.
Right,
and it's not like Oregon's not like they're winning a ton where
no
someone's outplaying them. So I don't know what I've saw from him from the beginning until now. I have not liked him, and I keep waiting for him to do something that thrills me. Like, hey, there's the potential, and I haven't seen it yet. I don't know what to make of him, except what I thought from the beginning. He's not there, and until he shows something, I'm going to have that same opinion.
I do think that he showed his potential to a pretty good degree at the PK tournament when they played Kentucky, or not Kentucky, Connecticut, Michigan State, and Villanova. I mean, in those games, he scored 13, 17, and 18. And, in that sense, we think,
Yeah.
all right, we're on our way. But ever since then, he played 28 against UCLA. He played in the 20s against Washington, UCLA. And after that, he really hasn't been playing much, and his playing time has actually been getting less and less and less. And to me, that's, I think that it's clear that, Altman is not happy with the effort, and the numbers are not outstanding. If you break down his numbers, the only thing that really stands out to you is the blocks. I mean, a block and a half per game on only 19 minutes per game, that's pretty damn good. Other than that, that's it. But I mean, the guy's 7'1", he better block shots. Yeah. I really don't like his defense. I don't think he runs the court well. On the positive side, I do think he has a pretty shot. Much I'll say. But it really won't matter. Okay, so if you have a guy who can shoot and block shots, but it's not very good on defense, not very good at running the floor, then what are we looking at? Another Mo Wagner?
Maybe.
That's basically, well, Mo Wagner even struggles to block shots, but you get my point. Mo Wagner has a beautiful shot, but he barely plays in the NBA because he can't run the floor and he can't play good defense. But no one ever accused Mo Wagner of dogging it. And that's where we are with Ware.
Something's going on with Ware and him sitting this last weekend. I don't know. I don't know, but his minutes have decreased significantly, as you said. I'm having a hard time putting a thumb on him right now.
Right. So, and by the way, in terms of Lively, to me, the biggest difference is Lively, I think, is much more mobile. But on the other hand, Ware can shoot the ball a lot better. But they both have, great weaknesses. They're both playing limited minutes. Obvious weaknesses, I guess the word I wanted.
And I agree, but we're talking about top 10 as far as freshmen coming into the year. Absolutely the best of the best, the cream of the crop that really have not done anything whatsoever. And that's kind of more what I'm talking about as far as certainly not done anything, but there's nothing to really judge their talent on how they're going to do at the next level because we haven't seen it.
Right. All right, the next guy on our list is a former 4-star, I believe, or maybe 5-star, maybe 5. I think he was a 4-star. Junior Adam Miller. And you asked the question out loud on the show, I think a week or so ago. What the hell is wrong with LSU? Well, part of the problem is, the guy who was supposed to be their top perimeter scorer has not been doing well. Beside his game against Texas Tech on Saturday was his first good game in a long time. He had a stretch from starting back in January where he scored 8, 9, 5, 3, and 9. But that's not the worst of it. Listen to these numbers from those same games. 2 of 12, 2 of 5, 2 of 11, 1 of 5, 3 of 12. Adam Miller can't throw it in the ocean right now. And he actually started the season pretty nice, but the problem with that is LSU played a really soft schedule to start the year. And so on the season, Adam Miller is only shooting 35% from the floor, 32% from deep, and that's his calling card, shooting from deep. And of course, he's shooting nice from the foul line, but he's not getting to the line very often. He's only getting the line 2.5 times a game, and he's shooting 80%. And none of his other numbers are very good either, including assist to turnover ratio, which is almost 0.5, which is horrible. So Adam Miller is just having a hard time in LSU. And I just don't see him coming out this year. I think he'd be insane because he's not getting drafted.
Yeah, and You're right. Adam Miller was supposed to be the guy in the perimeter for LSU that opens up everything else for that athletic team. And he has had good looks. It's not like he is taking bad shots. I mean, they're off the catch. There's a wide open vision at the rim, and he cannot make it. He's shooting 32% from three right now. Even at Illinois, though, as a freshman, he was at 34%, but he had streaks. And when he scores, he shoots it, and when he drops it, it looks good. And you're like, this kid's going to be something.
Yeah.
He hasn't done so. I see something there. He needs to stay in school. We'll see what happens. But
right.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, if we didn't see something there, we wouldn't even be talking about it.
Right. No, totally. Yeah.
Right. So the next guy on Stop Falling is a guy Booney's probably really familiar with, and that's Matt Bradley. Also, Hugh, our former co-host, Hugh Baxter, actually has played against Matt in some pro-ams when he lived in the San Diego area before he moved on to the Milwaukee Bucks. Can you believe Hugh left this show to work for the Milwaukee Bucks?
I mean, get your priorities straight.
Exactly.
Jesus. Come on.
So what makes Matt relevant is he's always been a bucket getter, and he's career 40% three-point shooter. But at the same time, I have a significant number of concerns with his game. What about you, Booney?
He's a Cal Berkeley transfer, so I got a chance to see him a lot when he was here before he went to San Diego State. 6'4", 220, big body, strong, left-hander, can really score it off the dribble, can go to the bucket, can really get his shot off anytime he wants. I like Bradley. I like Bradley a lot, but he is not putting the ball in the bucket, and that's a concern. I see that turning around. He's taking tough shots. He always is taking tough shots.
Yes.
But more than usual, he's never been shooting at the marks he's been shooting at now. Like I said, 36% from three. He's 42% from the 40% from the
40%
field. Wow.
from the field, yeah.
And he's really not doing a whole lot of anything else.
Right. And he never really has.
Never really has. It's tough. And that San Diego State team is very good. Mm-hmm. And if he can figure it out and gets his offense going, they're going to make a run in March. But right now, he's not there. I like Bradley. I think someone's going to pick him up. I think the shooting's going to turn around for him. If he gets to that point, he's difficult to stop on the offensive end.
Yeah. And if you notice, his minutes last year, he played 32 minutes per game. This year, he's down to 27. Part of that is because San Diego State can throw out about 9 guys who are good college players, including Bradley. And they don't need to rely on him as much this year, I think, as they did last year. But my major concern is I actually think he's heavy. I think he needs to lose weight. Right now he relies a lot more on strength and savvy and dribble moves. He has a nice handle than he does athleticism. And that doesn't really hurt him so much on the offensive end. It hurts him on the defensive end. And I just, he's never been, a guy to come up with steals or blocks. He's never even been a great passer. So yeah, I mean, if he can, regain his shooting form, like I said, 40% career shooter, he's got a chance. Again, another guy with, I believe, does he have one more year of eligibility? No, this is it for him. This is it. So, it's make or break time. And from his freshman season, I always thought, man, he's carrying a little too much extra weight, but he's never dropped it. Now, you could see a scenario where he gets with the right team and he gets his act together, gets his diet down, and he could be something. If he lost like 25 pounds, he could be a terror because he has the handle, he has the stroke, and he can also, score on the inside. But right now, I think the extra weight just limits his game, especially on the defensive end.
Right. Absolutely.
All right. So another guy, and I don't know if Jeremy Roach of Duke was a 5-star or 4-star, but he was definitely he was a top 25 recruit. And I heard I don't know if this is going to make you chuckle like it made me chuckle, but I believe it was Seth Davis on East, or not Seth Davis. Seth Greenberg said if they played Jeremy Roach, Jacob Grandison, and Ryan Young, and then filled in with the freshmen, Duke that's their best lineup. And I'm thinking, do you realize what you just said? You just said 3 mediocre players for a team that has national championship aspirations, and you're going to fill in with 2 freshmen. Right. So, and to me, that's where Roach is falling at this point, as a mediocre player. He looked really good, I think, down the stretch last year in their tournament run. But his numbers are like at an all-time low, at least from the field. 38% from the field, only 33% from deep. And the other problem I have with him, keep in mind, this is a 6'2" point guard who's supposed to be first job is distributing. He's only averaging 3.2 assists and two turnovers per game. So I just don't see what there is to buy in Roach, other than, he really played well in the tournament last year, but you take away that and you're like, man. I also realize he's had some injury troubles this year, but I'm not seeing it.
So he had his run last year in the tournament, looked real good. Everyone was super excited for him coming in. And if you remember at the beginning of the season through about December or so, Duke was missing their big freshman in Whitehead and Lively. And Roach really, really took over at that point. He had that big game against Iowa at the Garden, had 20-something points, and was really on pace to do some really, really good things. The ball was constantly on his hand. Ever since everybody else has come back, he has absolutely struggled. I think after that Iowa game, he's had maybe 1 or 2 games in double figures, and he can't shoot the ball whatsoever. His release is extremely slow. He's had great looks, and he just can't put the ball in the bucket. I've never been a real big Roach guy, and he's showing me why right now. So I think he needs a little bit more work. I hope he comes back to school. I expect him to come back to school, and maybe. But, yeah, I'm with you. He's had a glimpse of lightning, and that's been about it.
Yeah. So the next guy I've actually seen on draft boards. He was on our top 200 for a while, but he's just not coming through, and I don't quite understand it. Maybe you can shed some light on it, and that's Pelle Larsson of Arizona. You mean in a year where you would think that the perimeter guys are going to be having a lot of great looks on that team, and this is a guy whose calling card has always been his shooting, but this for the 3rd consecutive year, his 3-point shooting has dropped, or excuse me, the 2nd consecutive year. So as a freshman, he shot 46% from deep. Last year, 36% from deep. And this year, even though all the attention is going on the 2 bigs on Arizona, he's only shooting 29% from deep. So I just don't know if Pelle Larsson does enough, especially when he's shooting 29%, to be, and again, another guy with 2 years of eligibility. I just don't know if he does enough to be draft viable.
Yeah, and I agree. At 6'5", and the way that ball comes off his hands, you're thinking, wow, this guy's going to be something. I mean, it is a pretty looking jumper, great rotation, everything you would think an individual from Sweden would be as far as a shooter. Transfer from Utah. But yeah, he just has not gotten it going. And then for a second, I'm like, well, maybe it's his minutes. He's not getting a lot of minutes and everything around him. Every shot, he's extremely tight and trying to make it, but he's getting minutes. I mean, 33, 30, 29, 27 on a deep Arizona team. He might be one of those guys where if he transferred or did instead of going to an Arizona, went to more of a mid-major where he is the guy, I think he would be a different the results would be a lot different rather than playing in the Arizona system where there's so many balls out there and everyone's trying to get their own touches. I think he's good. I think he'll be there. I don't know if it's going to be with Arizona. I wouldn't be surprised if he transfers.
Here's the thing. You might be right about being in a different environment, but, on the other hand, there's never going to be a more representative environment that he's in now where the attention's not on him, and that's the kind of role where you would expect he's the kind of guy that this is where you would expect him to thrive. Now, I will say in his defense, he is doing other good things. Like he's almost 5 rebounds a game, 3 assists per game. So that's nice. But I'll also say, Arizona's kind of seemed to be clicking over the last 4 or 5 games. And that coincided with him going to the bench. He's now their 6th man. So, he's just got to get that shooting up to be a viable NBA guy because I just don't think he has enough skill in other ways.
Arizona's going to need him to start playing and shooting for them in order for them to make a run. They need that one more player.
Yes.
In order to make them viable.
Yes, because Trayce is not a knockdown shooter. Courtney Ramey's been doing well this year, but he's been streaky throughout his 5 years. They definitely need his shooting. So should be interesting. All right. And the last guy, and this is another guy, believe it or not, I've seen on draft boards, and you could maybe understand it at the start of the season. And I'm talking about Mark Armstrong of Villanova. I could understand it in the beginning of the season. People are thinking, okay, this 4-star guy is going to come in and they don't have Justin Moore. So this kid's going to be playing big minutes from the get-go. Well, that didn't turn out to be true. Archie Diacono actually turned out to be the starter at point guard. And now that Justin Moore's back, it could limit. It's definitely going to cut into his minutes because for Armstrong, his minutes had been increasing. And now Justin's Moore back and he only played 16 minutes the other night. But on the year, the kid's just not been getting it done. So you see the athleticism, you see the speed. Unfortunately, a lot of that speed goes to waste on this current edition of Villanova because they don't like to run. They don't want to run. They want to limit possessions. And so it doesn't play to his game right now. And we're talking about a kid who's shooting 39% from the floor, 24% from deep. He's averaging as many assists as turnovers. And, again, another 6'2" guard. I don't know how many thoughts how many times you've seen Armstrong, but.
Yeah, we've seen him in a good amount. And he's everything you're saying he is. And he's flying a lot under the radar from Whitmore, right? As far as the other freshmen out there. I believe he's a top 100 freshman, too.
He's top 50. Or
is he top 50? Yeah.
Close to it. Definitely a 4-star.
You make a great point with how Villanova plays. I think that's hurt Whitmore as well. And even how great Whitmore's been, imagine more in the open court, which he has not really had the opportunity to do.
Right.
I don't really know what Villanova's doing right now offensively. They're trying to force feed it to Dixon. I mean, everything right now with college basketball is just, wow. Villanova sits in the half court, tries to force feed it to Dixon, and Kentucky tries to get it up and down and ignores Sheboygan. You go figure. So, it's like the Twilight Zone out there. I wouldn't be surprised if Armstrong transfers. I see that athleticism. I see everything you're talking about. But we really have not seen what he can be. And he's not, for me, shouldn't be on anybody's draft board yet.
Right.
But I can see him being there.
Yeah. I hope he doesn't transfer. I think Villanova could play a more open style of ball if they had a deeper bench and they had more time to work on it. But they didn't. They've been hampered by injuries, and right now they don't have much of a bench at all. And I will say this. I'm going to say this. Against Providence, he was actually in there down the stretch.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. Okay, I know why they play Archie Diacono. He is not going to kill you with mistakes. Okay. At the same time, he's not going to help you win.
Right.
And Armstrong, yeah, he's going to make mistakes, but he also can make impact plays. But in those, 16 minutes that he played against Providence, he played well. He did play well, but not well enough to be a draft prospect right now.
Sure. Sure.
And I think, next year, Villanova can start the season fresh and maybe take advantage of some of his talents. I'm hoping that's what they'll do.
Sure. I agree with you.
All right. So now on to the fun part of the show with the predictions.
You won it. Champion again, Rich. Again.
Started a new streak. I was 13-5 last week. You and Mav both were 11-7.
Yeah.
On the season, I'm at 66%. You are now tied with Mav at 58%. Though if you break it down by decimals, he has you by like 4/10 of a point or something. But now we have a huge slate of games today. So you have plenty of chance to pass Mav and beat me.
Beautiful. I love it.
All right. So we're going to start off with tonight's games. And we start off with red hot Texas A&M at cold Arkansas.
How about Texas A&M? What an impressive win up in Auburn last week, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Winning by 16. I think Arkansas is playing a lot better. I've been on them just about every single week. Early on, I said, hey, get Nick Smith back. You're going to the Final Four. And I still believe in the athleticism they bring to the table. Give me Arkansas at home.
I have to agree. This is kind of like do or die for them. They kind of these are the games they're going to have to win, or and they got to break this losing streak. I thought they played really well against Baylor, just not well enough. Very close game throughout. So, all right. So we have the rematch of Kansas State and Kansas. I think K-State won something like 83-82 at their place. Tonight it's at the Fog.
One thing you got to notice about Kansas lately, even that game at Kentucky, one player that hasn't been doing a whole lot is Grady Dick. Look for a breakout game from him and Kansas to win handily at home.
Uh-oh. We're in too much of agreement already. I gotta agree with you. I thought it was good for Kansas to win in a different way, have other people contribute. That's got to give them some encouragement that they don't have to rely so much on Dick and Jalen Wilson. So, I'm going to go with Kansas here to get the revenge game. All right, we have red hot Indiana at Maryland, who's been playing, Maryland had a pretty bad slump there, but they've been picking it up lately.
Maryland played Nebraska, I believe, last game. Nebraska had them tight for almost 3/4, a banged up Nebraska at that for about 3/4 of the way through the first half before Maryland pulled away. And Maryland did something they usually don't do, is shot the hell out of it from 3. They like going to the hole, which is right into Mr. Davis's living. So I like Indiana to get one on the road.
Yeah, Maryland's a really tough place to play, but Indiana's just playing too well to go against them. All right. The aforementioned San Diego State in first place in the Mountain West at Nevada.
San Diego State is deep, athletic. They have shooters all around, and Nevada does not really defend. Look for them to get off to a very fast start, and for Matt Bradley to go for 40.
Whoa!
Yeah.
Whoa!
Yeah, in a game that's very high scoring.
I'm gonna go. I'm sure they're the underdog here. I'm gonna go with Nevada at home. I agree, but I think there's a lot of talent, especially offensive talent, on that Nevada team, and I think San Diego State might just be looking a little bit ahead to the Boise State game.
Okay.
All
At least
right.
we're on disagreement there.
Yeah. All right. Another good one. Providence at Xavier.
I think just too much firepower at Xavier for Providence to be able to pull it off. I like Providence. Xavier's just too much. Give me Xavier at home.
I agree. Two good teams. I think Xavier's a better team, and they're home. All right. The aforementioned Villanova at Marquette.
Yeah. You're not quite there yet, Villanova. Not sure if you're going to get there, and Marquette's just a tough team. Marquette at home.
I would say a logical betting man would go with Marquette. However, this to me is a desperation game for Villanova. It's kind of like if they don't win this, it's like over. Stick a fork in them.
Wow.
I am going to go with Villanova, and I'm thinking that their slow down, annoying, methodical style might just be enough to throw Marquette off and, force Marquette into a half-court game. And Marquette...
Gutsy play.
Yeah. All right. We have 19th ranked Florida Atlantic, only one loss on the season against one of their few competition in Conference USA, UAB. These two teams met earlier this season at Florida Atlantic, and Atlantic won, I think it was very close, high scoring. I think it was like 85-83.
I don't think Jelly Bean's back yet. Jordan Walker.
Yes, I should say that. He is still hurt. Yes.
I like Florida Atlantic without Jelly Bean.
All right. I'm just going to be contrary here and say Atlantic. We don't know what Walker's status is. I will say Eric Gaines. He was almost on our stock rising list. Been playing really well, especially with Walker out. I'm going to pick another upset, albeit the home team, with UAB.
Love it, Rich. I love it. I love where you're going with your picks this week.
so that you can win?
I need to hang my first banner. I don't have one. I mean, everyone's rolling me.
All right, so now we have a revenge game, another revenge game. Oregon, who trounced Arizona a few weeks ago, has to go to Arizona in a rematch.
Arizona's playing a lot better, and I got them in Tucson to get that W over the Ducks.
I agree. All right, now the aforementioned Boise State at San Diego State game. This is for first place in the Mountain West.
Like San Diego State at home. I believe in them. I think they're going to make a run in the NC2A.
Yes, I'm impressed with their depth. All right, speaking of first place games, another one. Kent State right now has a 1-game lead over Akron in the, oh my goodness,
Mid-American.
Right, the Mid-American. So it's Kent State at Akron.
Wow, this is a tough one. These are two really, really, really good teams. Kent State's been playing great. Akron's been playing shockingly good. In this case, it's a toss-up. I'm going to go with the home team. Give me Akron.
So am I. I am going with the home team. I think they're close. I think Toledo's right there too, with these teams. Maybe just a little notch below. Yeah. All right. Now we have February 4th. I believe this is a rematch of an earlier game.
Let me check that out. I believe
Virginia Tech.
It is. They played at Virginia last time, and Virginia got them by 10. I see that happening again this time, even though it's on the road. Disappointed in this VTech team. Saw them in the preseason, expected a lot of them, and they have just been struggling, haven't been able to put really anything together.
I agree with that. But Hunter Couture, their marksman. He was hurt for a while, which was during that bad slump of theirs. He's back and looking good. I'm going to go for the upset. Virginia, by the way, has won 7 straight to move atop of the ACC.
Wow.
But I am going to go with the home upset at Virginia Tech, which is another tough place to play. All right. We have Kansas at Iowa State. These are we are into Saturday games now.
Kansas at Iowa State. You know, a lot of people are making a lot of the recent slump Iowa State has gone on and where they really came from as far as their rankings and so forth, and a lot of overrated sayings. I think this Iowa State team is good. That backcourt of Holmes and Couture is legit. I like the Cyclones at home.
All right. We are disagreeing right and left here. I'm going to go with Kansas on the road. They made me believers when they went to Kentucky and won. All right. Now we have Michigan State at Rutgers. Rutgers, I believe, is in 3rd place currently in the Big Ten. Michigan State at Rutgers. Both of these teams have kind of been up and down, up and down.
You know, every time Michigan State comes up, I pick the wrong way, one way or the other. I pick Michigan State, it's a loss. Go the other way, pick the wrong way. It's unreal. Give me Rutgers. I might as well just highlight that in red for a loss.
I am going to go with the home team. I think these teams are pretty evenly matched. So I'm going to go with home team. All right. Another Saturday game. We have Auburn, number 25 in the country, against number 2. Is it number 2? Tennessee number 2?
Yes, 2.
Yeah, in the country. So 25 at number 2, Auburn at Tennessee.
I like the Volunteers at home. I like the Volunteers at Auburn. I think Braum, the big fella for Auburn's been a little bit of a disappointment this year. I'm just not with Auburn. No, I like Tennessee.
Yeah, I don't like Auburn either. They just don't really have a go-to scorer. Their little guards are just really inconsistent. And, they had a couple of 4-star guys, maybe even 5-star guys who aren't even playing. I just don't like what I see from Auburn at all. In Tennessee, of course, we know if you have a weakness, they're going to blow you out. All right, this is a tough one. Miami at Clemson. Listen to that silence.
Can I say his name again? Hunter Tyson, 16-10. He's going to carry the Tigers at home and take down the unreal backcourt of Isaiah Wong and Nigel Pack and get this one done. Clemson.
Miami's been struggling a little of late. They were rolling, and then they've kind of been, one game up, one game down. The most recently lost at Pitt. Also, Clemson barely beat Florida State. Of course, that was on the road. I'm going to look for the Hurricanes. Clemson's good, but I just don't know if they're the first place team in the ACC. They're going to lose some games somewhere, and I'm going to start with this one. All right, next on the docket, we have Purdue, who's obviously red hot, number 1 team in the country, at Indiana.
Purdue's doing what I hoped a lot of other teams would do with a dominant big man, controlling tempo, force feeding it, and playing from inside out. They're playing great basketball right now, and they're playing how you should be playing. I think with that alone, it's going to get them the win at Indiana. They are a disciplined team right now. Love how they're playing.
Purdue's playing very well, and Edey is like impossible to stop. Again, part of me says Purdue, but I just feel like they're going to lose a couple, and this seems to be the appropriate spot because Indiana is one of the hottest teams in the country. I'm going to go again with the upset. I'm going with Indiana at home versus Purdue. All right. We have Texas, who beat Baylor last night, at Kansas State.
Texas has been having a hard time on the road finding consistent scoring. Kansas State does not have that problem at home. Give me the Wildcats at home.
I'm agreeing with you. Texas won last night. But yeah, they struggle offensively. They're just not clicking yet. All right. We almost went a whole show without saying North Carolina or Duke, but but here they are matching up on Saturday nights. North Carolina at Duke.
The question here is Duke playing better basketball? They had a blowout win at Georgia Tech. They beat Miami. Well, I mean, not really. I mean, they're 2-2 in the last 4. It seems like they're playing better, but I've gone against Duke all year, and that's not going to change now. Tar Heels on the road.
I think this North Carolina group kind of has Duke's number, and we don't know if Whitehead is going to play. I don't even know if that makes a hell of a lot of difference because he wasn't playing that well. But Caleb Love really plays well against Duke. So I'm going with Duke. I'm going with the experienced team. All right. Next game, Villanova at Creighton.
Creighton. Simple.
Yep. I agree. I can't pick Villanova twice to beat 2 ranked. Well, actually, Creighton is not ranked, but should be. I just can't go with Villanova twice on the road. And I think, I really went out on a limb taking them over Marquette. Not going to do it here. Florida at Kentucky, 2 up and down teams.
The Gators are not Kansas. It's in Lexington. I like Kentucky. They're playing a lot better to get this win in a up-tempo game or in a half court.
I agree. All right. Here for first place in the West Coast Conference, Gonzaga at St. Mary's.
Here's something interesting about Gonzaga. Gonzaga has not, obviously, in the last, I'd say probably a good month, have not played good at all, underachieved.
Wow.
Haven't defended, have looked uninterested. But when their backs have been against the wall, and I look back to one game after they were struggling, and they still have played the most perfect game I've seen so far this year in college hoops, and that was Gonzaga versus Alabama. And what they did in that game is they got it down to Timmy and played from there. And they seem to do that when everything is on the line, when their backs are against the wall. And I like Gonzaga to go into Moraga and get the win.
I agree with most of everything you're saying here. But Gonzaga has underachieved. You said the word. And this team is just not grabbing me. I'm not even considering them a Final Four contender right now. Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, I picked it.
I think you're right. I will say this. If Gonzaga, when everything is ticking at all cylinders, if everyone's playing their best basketball of the year, to me, Gonzaga is the best team.
Okay.
But that's hard to say or hard to agree with, considering they're losing at like a Marymount. They're giving up 90-something points.
They're barely winning other
Portland
games. Yeah.
So I just remember that game against Bama because I was so high on Bama, and I was like, oh my God, they're playing a perfect game.
Yep.
But who knows?
Right. I agree with you, but I'm going to go with St. Mary's right now. We shall see. We shall see.
That's why they play the games. Yeah.
All right. We have 2 floundering teams who desperately need a win. Ohio State probably more so than Michigan. Ohio State at Michigan.
I still like Michigan, Rich. I like Michigan. I like Dickinson. I like Howard. Their guards need to figure it out a little bit more. I still think they're going to make a run in the tournament. Give me Michigan.
I agree. I think Dickinson, who was surprisingly shut down by Penn State, I mean, they shut him down. I mean, I think he only scored like 3 points.
Yeah,
He's gonna be angry.
right.
All right, another revenge game. A quick turnaround. Houston at Temple. Temple upset Houston just a few weeks, or not even 2 weeks ago. And now it's in Philly.
I think not enough credits going into how good the American Conference is with Cincinnati, with Houston, with Memphis, with Temple. You got UCF in there as well.
Yeah.
I think it's a darn good conference. And I think we're looking at some of the results of Houston only winning by 4 or 5 or getting upset by Temple or whatever it may be. And like, hey, Houston's down. I just think the conference is good. But I do think Houston's that much better. I think they're going to really be focused this game. I think it's going to be a real fun game to watch. And I like the Cougars on the road.
Yeah, I can't see Houston losing to the same team twice.
Yeah.
So I got to go with Houston. All right. Now we have Duke at Miami, and this would be next Monday night.
Mm-hmm. Fun game. I mean, but it's going to be a little revenge for Miami. Miami had that game won at Cameron and lost it down the stretch. I think they're going to get it done at home and get this W.
Yep. I like the veteran team here as well. All right. And last, another Monday night game, Texas at Kansas.
Same thing, man. You know, Texas certainly plays hard, but they are having a hard time finding consistent scoring. Give me the Jayhawks at home.
I'm going to agree with you again, and that means I am picking Kansas all 3 games. And, of course, they're playing 3 ranked teams this week. So we shall see. We definitely had some disagreement once we got rolling. All right, so we'll move on to the mailbag. Bryce wants to know, I listen every week, follow your draft board closely, but sometimes I don't get the stock report. Shouldn't the guys you have rising move up the board and vice versa for stock falling? Also, you guys don't always have great things to say about the prospects featured on stock rising. Can you clarify, please? Okay, that's a legitimate question. Well, number one, the only thing you can count on with stock rising or stock falling is the players are not hot. You know, the players on rising are going to be hot players. The players on falling are going to be cold players. That you know. As far as moving up and down our board, you know, we may have moved a guy up, say, this week. And let's say like Eric Gaines. I mentioned that he was almost on our stock rising list, you know, for UAB. But we can't talk about everybody. So we might move them up this week and talk about them next week. So as far as us not agreeing, we're never going to always agree. I mean, that's just the way it is. You know, and a lot of times, I don't think we've never had an argument whether guys hot or cold. That can't really be disputed, but we do discuss their prospects as a pro, you know, how they're going to do as a pro. And that's where we're probably going to disagree at times. So,
I mean, you know, I think Bryce, what you're saying, I hear what you're saying. And as far as saying negative things about a player's obviously something you never really want to do. But I think a good example of this is kind of when we talked about LJ Cryer last week, right? I think he's a hell of a player. I think he's a great contributor to Baylor and so forth. But I think me and Rich had a disagreement as far as how high he will be. I have him in a certain plateau. He has him at a much higher plateau. And I think when that discussion comes out, negativity, unfair negativity might be portrayed from it versus then what we actually feel about the player. Like I said, I think Crier's a hell of a player. But when 2 people have him on 2 different levels, one's going to take one point of view, the other one's going to take the other.
Right. That conversation went totally to his NBA potential.
Correct.
And so when we say we might talk about I don't know. Actually, there's some obscure players that are here that we got questions about. So does that, just because we have a guy on Stock Rising doesn't mean that we think he's going to be a first round pick or a second round pick. We just mean that he's playing well. And so if you're playing well, obviously your draft stock's got to be improving to some level. I think, that's what it means. Doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be a first or second round pick. All right. So one of the interesting questions we have, Cam says, where's North Dakota State's Grant Nelson? He's a unique talent and should definitely be in your top 100. Grant Nelson is on our board. Of course, we don't publish our whole entire board, and he's between 300 and 400 on our board. Good player. I actually sent an interview request to see if we could get Grant on the show. He's a stretch 4. And we just don't see North Dakota State enough. Maybe if we saw him more, but he's definitely on our radar. It's just, I don't know if he's top 100 player yet.
These are one of those circumstances where playing at North Dakota State hurts you. Grant Nelson, 6'11", junior forward, averaging 6'17" and 8. He's about as athletic and explosive a man his size in college basketball. He can put the ball on the floor. He pulls up from literally everywhere, plays with his back to the basket, plays from the 3-point line as well, can catch and shoot, can shoot off the dribble, a lot of raw talent. Now, only shooting 25% from 3, which is a downer. I think that's going to get better. But my point being, him being at North Dakota State isn't getting him the type of attention he needs. If he's at a big school, he's top 100 for sure.
Okay. So do you think, like right now we have him, like I said, let's say 350. I'm not exactly sure what number he's at, but I know it's between 300 and 400. Do you think he should be higher than that?
Yeah, I definitely do. You have to take a closer look and see who's in front of him. But I think he's a lot better than a lot of players right now who is in front of him. And I'm just going to try to look at the list right now as far as stock fall and see if anybody that comes to mind. Obviously nothing really comes to mind as far as what's on the list, but God, he's a hell of a talent. And I think scouts are starting to notice him a little bit. And in the way North Dakota State plays as well, they like getting up and down the floor. That's going to also flourish as well. So okay. I like him a lot.
So we may have another Baylor Shireman on our hands. I mean, different type of players, but
different than Baylor. It doesn't shoot the ball nearly as well as Baylor, but
no. But I meant as far as a kind of a hidden talent up there in the Dakotas.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Wouldn't be surprised if he transferred next year.
Okay, and that certainly benefited Baylor. You can't go anywhere without seeing his name somewhere these days.
Yep.
All right. So Jay says, I think you were a bit harsh on Mike Bray last week. Notre Dame's big mistake was not joining the Big Ten when they could. The Big East wasn't bad, but the ACC sucks for the Irish. There are no natural rivalries in the ACC, which is why the fans don't get that excited. The Big Ten is filled with longtime rivals like Michigan, Indiana, and Purdue. So there's really not a question. It's just a comment. I couldn't agree more. I was a little bit harsh on Mike. I admitted that. And I really think Notre Dame should have moved to the Big Ten where all their natural rivals are. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with they just don't seem to fit in the ACC.
No, they don't. And how does one get excited about playing Wake Forest or it's just it's just. I'm not saying anything bad about Wake Forest, but when they're right next to Purdue and Indiana in the same state, and yet they don't play those teams. It's crazy.
I will say this, for a school like Notre Dame and how prestigious it is and who they are, I am down on their personnel. I feel like they should be putting out a better product on the floor than what they currently have.
Right. Okay. Nat asks, have you seen Youngstown's Dwayne Cohill? The brother can play. Yes, I have. Youngstown was on TV on Friday night, and there wasn't much else on. And I did see Dwayne Cohill, and Dwayne Cohill is not some mystery guy who he started at Dayton. So I think he was the 3-star, but he started at Dayton. Kid has speed. Kid's a good shooter. He's another player that we've invited to the show recently. I definitely think he's another hidden gem.
I saw that game too. I believe it was against Detroit Mercy, right? And
no. It was I'll tell you in a sec. Game before it was against Oakland.
Yeah. I haven't seen Cohill play before until I saw him against Detroit Mercy. And the big thing about him was, what a gamer, what a competitor he is, and the big second halves he's been having. I believe he had one of those against Oakland. And he had 3 points in the first half against Detroit Mercy in about 5 minutes.
Unless he did the same thing, but against Oakland. You're talking about the Friday night game?
I'm talking about he had a big second half against Oakland, correct?
Right.
Okay.
He did the same.
He did the same exact thing. They were down 11 to Detroit Mercy about 5 minutes in the second half, had 3 points, and took over the game. Had 16 in the second half. He's 6'2". He's averaging 18 a game, and here's what's special about him. The ball's constantly in his hands. Defense is always surrounding him and paying much attention to him. He's shooting 53% from three. That's unreal. With tough shots, with hands in his face, 55% from the floor.
Mm-hmm.
He is a jump shooter first and does everything else depending on how the defense reacts based on his jump shot. Yeah, he's good. Real good.
3.5 rebounds, 4.8 assists per game.
The one thing I didn't like about him, though,
87% from the line.
He was yelling at his teammates here and there when things weren't going so well. I did notice that. So that was a little bit of a question for me. But as far as his pure talent, yeah, I like him a lot.
Yeah, his speed is obvious.
Yeah.
I mean, he looks like
reminds me of like little Mike Miles.
Yeah,
with a jump shot.
They're built differently for sure.
Yeah. But that speed is what it reminds me of.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Well, that wraps up our questions. Good questions. Thanks for looking for prospects for us, guys. I want somebody to bring us a prospect we haven't seen. That's my challenge to you listeners. Ask us about somebody we haven't seen, because our draft board goes pretty damn deep.
Sure does, doesn't it?
All right. So thanks for the questions, folks. If you'd like to send us one, please email to admin@hoopsprospects.com. We also take questions via social media on Twitter @hoopsprospects, on Instagram @thehoopsprospects, and on Facebook @hoopspros. I want to thank all of our listeners. We'll be back next week with a new stock report. And Mike DeCourcy from Fox Sports and the Big Ten Network. He's their bracketologist and also an analyst in the studio. And, of course, much more. And if you ever miss an episode, you can get caught up on @hoopsprospects.com. Any final words, Booney?
Rich, I'm just looking to earn my first championship in the picks, and it couldn't come at a better time going mano a mano with you. So real excited about that, but it was a fun show. Enjoyed it, and look forward to a fun week of games.
Yeah, it was excellent. All right. We'll see you next week, folks.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, Rich. Appreciate it, guys.
Yes, thank you.